They said it was impossible, that the secrets of Oak Island would never be uncovered. For over 200 years, treasure hunters have risked everything, lives, fortunes, even sanity, chasing a mystery buried deep underground. But now, after decades of excavation and research, is this mystery finally on the verge of being solved? A shocking discovery has emerged from a 900-year-old well that could rewrite everything we thought we knew about Oak Island. What lies beneath the surface may be more astonishing and dangerous than anyone ever imagined. Brace yourself, because the truth about Oak Island is about to be uncovered. But before we dive in, make sure to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any of the shocking discoveries ahead. Let's find out. The legend and the mystery of Oak Island. Oak Island, a small tree-covered patch of land off the coast of Nova Scotia, Canada, has captivated treasure hunters, historians, and television audiences for more than 2 centuries. Despite measuring less than 140 acres, its reputation towers over countless other sites thanks to enduring legends of hidden wealth and enigmatic structures buried beneath its surface. Stories of buried treasure date back to the late 1700s, when local settlers stumbled upon strange depressions in the ground and wooden platforms deep within the earth. These discoveries would soon earn the island a place in folklore and eventually inspire one of the longest and most costly treasure hunts in history. At the heart of Oak Island's mythology is the infamous Money Pit, a shaft first excavated in 1795. According to early accounts, young men exploring the island began to dig after noticing unusual markings on a tree and depressions in the soil. What they uncovered seemed to defy explanation. Layers of oak timbers, charcoal, and clay spaced at regular intervals as they went deeper. The pit collapsed on more than one occasion, flooding suddenly and resisting every attempt to reach the bottom. Some came to believe it hid pirate gold, perhaps linked to Captain Kidd or Blackbeard. Others suggested the treasure belonged to the Knights Templar, or that it was evidence of pre-Columbian voyages to the New World. Each failed excavation only deepened the mystery, reinforcing the notion that the island was designed as a calculated trap. Over time, tunnels and flood channels were discovered, some natural, others possibly man-made. Engineers and treasure hunters noted that seawater seemed to rush into the pit through hidden channels connected to the island's shores. These features gave rise to one of the most persistent questions. Could Oak Island have been engineered centuries before modern equipment, using knowledge few believed possible at the time? For believers, the complexity of the island's underground structures confirmed its connection to powerful secret societies or ancient civilizations. For skeptics, it was simply a combination of natural geology and wishful thinking. But Oak Island's mysteries extend far beyond the Money Pit. Scattered across the island are enigmatic stone markers, old foundations, and fragments of artifacts that appear to come from different eras and cultures. Over the years, teams have unearthed items ranging from fragments of parchment and old coins to strange inscribed stones. While many of these finds remain disputed or difficult to date, they keep fueling theories that something remarkable once happened here. One particular area of growing interest is known as Lot 26. Unlike the Money Pit, this site is not a place of collapse and flooding, but of permanence. A stone well carefully constructed, that some claim dates back as far as 900 years. The well is built of fitted stones stacked with apparent intention and has drawn serious attention from both explorers and television crews. If its age is accurate, it would suggest human activity on Oak Island centuries before Europeans are thought to have settled in Nova Scotia. That alone makes it one of the most controversial sites on the island. But then, there was one shocking discovery that made things even more unbelievable. The well on Lot 26. Excavation begins. Lot 26, a quiet section of Oak Island, has become one of the most watched excavation sites in recent years. Nestled among trees and uneven ground, the site contains a stone well that immediately stands out from its natural surroundings. The well is circular, its walls constructed from perfectly fitted stones that rise in layers, giving the impression of engineering rather than a crude water source. Some stones are smoothed, others jagged, but together they form a structure that has endured for centuries, resisting collapse and overgrowth. The opening is wide enough for a person to climb into, yet narrow enough to suggest it was built with purpose. Moss and lichen cling to its surface, but even in its weathered state, the workmanship is undeniable. The site quickly attracted the attention of the History Channel team behind The Curse of Oak Island. Rick Lagina and his brother Marty, who have spent years chasing the secrets of the island, enlisted professional archaeologists and excavation experts to take a closer look at the well. Their work combined the excitement of treasure hunting with the careful precision of scientific study. Every step was filmed, not just for television, but to make sure each stone moved and every artifact found was carefully documented. The excavation started with a cautious clearing of plants and loose soil around the well's edge. Ground-penetrating radar was used to see what lay beneath, revealing unusual patterns in the soil that hinted at possible extensions or changes to the structure. Once the area was stabilized, archaeologists began removing debris by hand, layer by layer, making sure nothing of historical value was missed. Wooden platforms were built around the site to allow tools and equipment to be safely lowered into the shaft. The team went beyond basic digging. They collected soil samples from different depths to determine if the layers matched known periods of settlement. By studying organic remnants like small pieces of wood or charcoal, they aimed to create a timeline for when the well had been in use. Water samples were also taken from inside the shaft, looking for chemical clues that might reveal how the well functioned. Early discoveries sparked excitement. Pottery fragments were found near the top layers of the well, some clearly from colonial times, while others seemed unusual enough to start debate. A few rusted iron items, possibly tools or nails, were also unearthed, their corrosion hinting at great age. But the deeper the team dug, the stranger the findings became. Some stones lower in the shaft showed faint chisel marks, suggesting they had been shaped by human hands rather than nature. To many, this pointed to skilled construction, a deliberate effort to create something meant to last. One of the most fascinating findings involved the soil layers themselves. Instead of a uniform fill, the well contained alternating bands of sand, clay, and compacted earth. Experts involved in the dig noted that this could indicate intentional backfilling, raising the question of whether the well had been reused or hidden at different times. The layering didn't match what would be expected of a simple water well, leading some to wonder if its purpose had shifted over the centuries. Throughout the excavation, Rick and Marty remained cautious but visibly fascinated, aware that each small discovery could change the story of the island. Archaeologists stressed that the worked stones and unusual layers required more testing before drawing any firm conclusions. Still, the evidence suggested that Lot 26 held more than a forgotten water source. It offered a glimpse into human activity stretching far back in time, possibly farther than conventional history acknowledges. By the end of the first phase, the well had produced artifacts, hints of construction, and a host of unanswered questions. The structure itself showed careful craftsmanship, but whether that work belonged to settlers, explorers, or even earlier builders remained unknown. What was certain was that Lot 26 had earned its place among Oak Island's most compelling mysteries, promising revelations that could challenge everything previously believed about the island's past. clues and contradictions, building suspense. As work continued around Oak Island's well on Lot 26, excitement surged, but it was matched by an equally strong current of doubt. Some discoveries hinted at extraordinary antiquity, possibly predating European visits to Nova Scotia by centuries. Yet skeptics were quick to point out inconsistencies, cautioning that appearances could be misleading. The result was a tense tug-of-war between those eager to rewrite history and those insisting on careful scrutiny. One of the most compelling arguments for the well's age came from radiocarbon analysis of nearby organic material. Insider reports suggested that tests on wood and charcoal fragments indicated dates stretching back hundreds of years, in some cases to the 12th or 13th century. For enthusiasts, the results were electrifying, a potential glimpse of a medieval presence in North America long before Columbus. Archaeologists, however, reminded the public that radiocarbon dating is only as reliable as the context of the sample. If wood or charcoal had been moved over centuries, the results might not accurately reflect the well's true age. Artifacts added another layer of mystery. Pottery fragments found nearby resembled items from colonial settlements, yet others resisted easy classification. Some were cruder, with shapes and markings that didn't match known European designs from the 1600s or 1700s. Were these anomalies proof of earlier craftsmanship, or just wear and breakage that altered their appearance? Typology, the study of artifact shapes and styles, offered hints, but no definitive answers. Eyewitness accounts from the excavation team heightened the intrigue. Team members noticed unusual features in the well's construction. Stones fitted together with striking precision, certain layers deliberately packed with clay, and alignments that might be symbolic rather than purely practical. Several stones showed faint grooves that appeared to be tool marks, sparking debate over whether they were human-made or shaped by nature. Even more curious, some lower stones seemed unusually well preserved compared to those near the surface, suggesting techniques intended to endure centuries underground, or raising the possibility that the structure had been modified or rebuilt later. Experts outside the immediate excavation were divided. Archaeologist Charles Barkhouse, who has appeared frequently on The Curse of Oak Island, emphasized that while the craftsmanship was impressive, it did not necessarily prove great antiquity. Many wells constructed in the 17th and 18th centuries used similar techniques, and stonework alone could not pinpoint an exact age. Historians familiar with early Nova Scotian settlements echoed this caution, pointing out that European colonists often reused and adapted older structures. Skeptics also pointed to the absence of historical records. If such a significant structure truly dated back 900 years, why was there no trace of it in indigenous oral traditions or in early maps of the region? Some experts argued that the lack of documentation was itself evidence against an early origin, suggesting instead that the well was most likely built during colonial times and had simply been forgotten as communities shifted. And yet, the contradictions refused to resolve neatly. Radiocarbon dates hinted at great age, artifacts suggested mixed origins, and the physical construction invited both admiration and suspicion. Even among professionals, no consensus emerged. The well on Lot 26 seemed to defy easy categorization, straddling a boundary between legend and fact, between a bold rewriting of history and the possibility of a much more mundane explanation. What became clear was that Oak Island had once again delivered its signature blend of promise and paradox. Every new clue pointed in multiple directions at once, leaving audiences, experts, and the team itself suspended in uncertainty. Was Lot 26 the long-awaited proof of an ancient presence on the island, or just another chapter in its long history of misinterpreted signs? The answer, for now, stayed hidden in the shadows, waiting for a revelation that might silence skeptics or confirm their doubts once and for all. The late excavations. What emerged from Lot 26 during the late excavations is nothing short of jaw-dropping. The discovery in the 900-year-old Oak Island well has even been confirmed by History Channel experts familiar with the digs. According to insiders closely connected with the Curse of Oak Island, the team announced findings that strongly suggest the stone well is ancient, potentially far older than colonial times. Yes, it sounds unbelievable. Recent testing now indicates that the well's lowest structural stones, along with certain wooden elements within its lining, date back to roughly the 12th or early 13th century. While there is still debate over how continuously it was used, the evidence points to construction, or at least significant modification, many centuries ago, possibly long before traditional European settlement in the region. The confirmation comes from a combination of radiocarbon dating, metallurgical analysis, and artifact studies. Wood fragments sealed in lower layers were radiocarbon dated to around 1200 AD. An iron spike embedded in one of the stone joints, when examined under a microscope, showed corrosion patterns and alloy types unlike those of 17th or 18th century colonial tools. Its composition suggests either a much older ironworking tradition or a supply source that predates most known colonial implements in Nova Scotia. Adding to the intrigue, a small, flat metal plate, possibly decorative, was found pressed between stones deep in the well shaft. Insiders say the plate bears markings resembling medieval craftsmanship, simple but intentional etchings, not random wear. Specialists who examined high-resolution photos believe the design could match European decorative styles of the Middle Ages. Microscopic analysis of soil particles clinging to the plate indicates it came from a low-oxygen environment, meaning it had remained undisturbed for centuries. Water testing inside the well also revealed surprising chemical signatures, traces of mineral deposits consistent with long-term water flow, and unusual levels of compounds like iron and copper. This suggests the well might have tapped subterranean springs or clean water sources. If so, it may have served not only as a potable water source, but also held trade or ritual significance, since pure water was highly valued in earlier settlements. Taken together, these discoveries dramatically change what was previously believed about the well. Once thought to be colonial era, or even newer, tied loosely to 1700s or 1800s settlement activities, the Lot 26 well is now being considered by many insiders as one of the oldest man-made structures on Oak Island. The implications for Oak Island's history are enormous. Instead of mysteries being mostly colonial or post-colonial, they may reach far deeper into the past. Historians and archaeologists are now forced to rethink who built the well, when, and why. The evidence suggests Oak Island may have been visited or inhabited by groups far earlier than believed. Groups capable of sophisticated stonework and metallurgy long before conventional timelines. Of course, not everyone accepts this fully. Some experts caution that contamination, displacement of artifacts over time, or reuse of older materials could affect the results. But the excavation team insists that multiple lines of evidence all point in the same direction. This is not a single anomalous finding. Whatever questions remain, this revelation is a turning point. Oak Island's past is far broader, older, and more mysterious than anyone had dared to imagine. Aftermath: rewriting history. The revelation from Lot 26 quickly rippled through both the archaeological community and the long-standing Oak Island treasure hunt. For some experts, the findings marked a watershed moment, an opportunity to reconsider the island's role in North American history. For others, caution was still the guiding principle, with warnings that one site should not be allowed to redefine centuries of scholarship without careful verification. Archaeologist Lerard Nan, who has worked closely with the Curse of Oak Island team, acknowledged the potential significance of the well, but urged patience. Lier emphasized that while the evidence suggested unusual antiquity, extraordinary claims demand extraordinary proof. He reminded audiences that archaeology is a discipline of context. Artifacts, structures, and organic remains must all align before rewriting established timelines. Nonetheless, Lier admitted that the craftsmanship of the well, combined with the age ranges reported through testing, raised questions that could not be easily dismissed. Historians outside the project have been equally divided. Some, particularly those specializing in medieval exploration, have argued that the discovery may point to pre-Columbian transatlantic contact. They reference known voyages by Norse explorers who reached Newfoundland by the year 1000 as a precedent for earlier European presence in the region. Could Oak Island well be another piece of evidence extending that story southward along the coast? For these historians, the possibility that medieval seafarers left behind a permanent structure is tantalizing. Others, however, argue that the evidence does not require rewriting history so dramatically. They caution that materials may have been reused, relocated, or deposited by settlers centuries later. The well, they suggest, could simply represent an early colonial adaptation of older resources rather than proof of a medieval outpost. For these skeptics, the story of Oak Island remains one of fascinating local history rather than a rewriting of global narratives. What is undeniable, however, is that the discovery has energized public discussion about migration and settlement in the area. For decades, Nova Scotia's early history was framed primarily around Mi'kmaq habitation, followed by French and British colonization in the 1600s. The possibility of a 12th or 13th century structure forces historians to ask new questions. Were there unknown visitors who interacted with indigenous communities? Could early trade routes have extended farther than we ever imagined? And if so, what other structures might remain hidden beneath Oak Island's soil? The implications are equally dramatic for treasure hunters. If the well truly predates colonial times, it could push back the origins of Oak Island's most famous mystery, the money pit itself. Treasure hunters have long debated whether the island's underground works were the product of pirates, secret societies, or ancient builders. The Lot 26 discovery lends weight to the theory that some form of advanced construction took place on the island centuries before the treasure legends of the 18th century. This raises the possibility that what lies buried in the money pit or elsewhere on the island may be tied to cultures and voyages far older than once imagined. Insiders close to the excavation have even suggested that the well could mark a central hub of activity, perhaps the earliest settlement point from which other works radiated. If true, this would mean that the island's mysteries are not isolated incidents, but part of a larger system of construction and use. That possibility has fueled new speculation about undiscovered tunnels, chambers, or caches still waiting to be uncovered. The aftermath of the discovery has also reignited public fascination. Tours of Oak Island, which already drew thousands of visitors each year, have seen surging demand as people hope to glimpse the well that could rewrite history. Meanwhile, researchers are calling for more comprehensive digs, not only on Oak Island but across nearby islands that may hold similar, overlooked structures. In short, the Lot 26 discovery has done what few finds ever manage. It has reopened a centuries-old debate with fresh urgency. Whether it ultimately proves to be a medieval relic, a colonial oddity, or something in between, the well has expanded the boundaries of the Oak Island mystery. Wider impact and future directions. For the team behind The Curse of Oak Island, the discovery on Lot 26 isn't the end. It's just the beginning. Rick Lagina and his crew have already made it clear they plan to keep exploring the site with ground-penetrating radar, expanded core drilling, and archaeological sampling. The well itself, now shown to be far older than anyone imagined, has become a central focus for future digs. It's no longer just about treasure. Now, the aim is to uncover the daily lives of the people who once lived on or traveled through Oak Island. This breakthrough also changes how the show frames its mission. For years, critics dismissed it as chasing legends. But, with a confirmed structure dating back centuries before colonial settlement, the team has earned fresh credibility. Marty Lagina has hinted that future seasons will focus more on historical reconstruction alongside treasure hunting. In other words, viewers can expect fewer speculative tunnels and more carefully studied archaeological digs guided by professionals rather than rumors. The impact extends beyond television. Nova Scotia's heritage authorities are taking a closer interest in Oak Island as a cultural site, not just a curiosity. Local officials have suggested stronger conservation efforts, especially as rising tourism puts pressure on the island's fragile ecosystem. What started as a private treasure hunt is gradually becoming part of Canada's broader conversation about heritage preservation. Public fascination, of course, isn't slowing down. The well's discovery adds a fresh layer of mystery, attracting both amateur historians and casual fans. Tourism agencies are already seeing renewed interest, with visitors eager to explore where the find was made and walk the same ground where history is being rewritten. Yet, big questions remain. Who built the well, and why? Was it for settlement, trade, or something more ceremonial? And how does it tie into the legendary buried treasure that first put Oak Island on the map? Do you have a theory? Share it in the comments.